There will be no live session next week. It's Labor Day. It's a holiday. I'm not going to be working. I will be practicing mindfulness, but I will not be here. So just a big announcement. We won't have a live session next Monday. We will continue our live sessions on September 12th with Dr. Catalina McInerney from the University of Miami. So here is your PD Health at Home upcoming schedule. Next Wednesday, we have our expert briefing, Use It or Lose It, the impact of physical activity in Parkinson's. And our next live Fitness Friday will be on September 23rd, Synapse, Move Stronger with PD. Our Regional Care Partner Summit is coming up. So the foundation is spread across different regions of the United States, and we are hosting in-person and live streaming our Care Partner Summits. Jennifer and I will be in Atlanta, Georgia on November 5th, and you'll see where your region is listed here. You can join in person if it's local to you or online. I want to thank our sponsor, the Light of Day Foundation. Their generosity makes our programs possible. If you're new to Parkinson's disease or experiencing something new along your journey with Parkinson's, I highly recommend you turn to us for your resource with anything related to Parkinson's. Our website has extensive amounts of information written by experts like Dr. Taylor Rush and others around the world for Parkinson's disease. That website's up there on the screen, parkinson.org. If you want to chat with a Parkinson's specialist, our helpline is bilingual, speaking English and Spanish at 1-800-4PD-INFO. We prefer to email helpline@parkinson.org. It's just with great honor that we get to welcome back our expert, Dr. Taylor Rush. Dr. Rush, I'm just going to end it here and let you guide us through the rest of our time together. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Krista. It's good to see everyone today. Looks like we've got a good group going here and a lot of representation all over the country, which is really nice to see. I know sometimes we even get some international folks in. So again, it's good to see everyone. And it feels like it's been a while since I've been here. And so I'm really excited to come back and chat a little bit more about mindfulness and how to create a practice that is meaningful in your life. And so as I was thinking about today and what I wanted to reflect on with you guys, I was recently talking to some of my patients who do sometimes attend these Mindful Mondays, or sometimes they'll go back and watch them later on the YouTube channel. And I'll ask them, well, what do you think? How do you like it? Don't mind me, the person who helps to create some of these events. And, for the most part, I get a lot of positive feedback, but one consistent constructive piece of feedback that I get is that people will say, I feel like I learned new things, I learned some new strategies, but I could really use some help with learning how to deepen my practice. And so I feel like superficially, I understand mindfulness and I understand, what it is and why it's important. But I feel as if, I struggle with figuring out how to make it work in my life and in a way that's meaningful. And so a lot of them, after learning the basics of mindfulness, are like, now what? How do I use this? How can I make it work for me? And how do I navigate some of those potholes that can make practice difficult? And so I thought we could spend a little bit of time today reflecting on that idea of how to deepen your practice, how to make it relevant and work for you in a way that's meaningful. And then we'll top off our time with doing a somewhat brief awareness exercise that is meant to help with deepening one's mindfulness practice. So I thought that we would begin by talking a little bit about the 7 core attitudes of mindfulness. So when we look at, what is mindfulness? What does it mean? How does it work? There are 7 key attitudes that are meant to make up how we are mindful. So the first, and this is one that many of you know, especially if you've joined us before, is the attitude of non-judging. How can we observe and notice our experiences without necessarily attaching a strong sense of judgment or value to it? How can we see the situation for the facts that are present, good, bad, and questionable, and be able to recognize all of it rather than get sucked or pulled in by any one piece of the experience that may be very difficult or strong for us? So non-judgment is a big piece of, creating an attitude of mindfulness. And another is patience. So how can we be patient with the timelines that we have versus the timelines that we want? So we may want it to only take us, 10 minutes to get to the grocery store, but because if your town is anything like Cleveland right now, it seems like every other road is under construction because it's summer and that's when we do things around here. And it ends up taking twice as long to get to the store. And so you can get very impatient with, the things that we can't control, but wish would just happen faster. And so being able to recognize that some things are just going to happen in their own time. Some things are not things that we can necessarily dictate how quickly or how slowly they move. And sometimes that may also include one's own body. So patience is another attitude that tends to be part of how to cultivate mindfulness. And a third, and I actually did a whole topic on this once, is beginner's mind. How to cultivate a beginner's mind, which basically means how can you remain open and curious about any given situation, even if you've done something similar 1,000 times before? Because sometimes if we can look at a situation or a person or a problem with a fresh perspective, kind of a new set of eyes, so to speak, we come up with different ideas of how to manage it. And so beginner's mind helps us to get out of autopilot, helps us to be able to see the situation for what it is this time, rather than perhaps what it has been before. And the next one is trust. So how can we cultivate an attitude of trust? And mostly this is about, how do we trust ourselves? How do we trust our own efforts? And recognize that it's never going to be perfect, because we are not made as a species to be perfect. That is not our job. How can we trust that we are doing the best that we can with what we have? And how can we trust ourselves enough to recognize that it's okay to make mistakes? Because we're going to make mistakes regardless. But can we trust ourselves to be able to get back up after we've made a mistake? Can we trust ourselves to be able to learn from it? And can we trust ourselves to say, I'm going to try this again, and lean into that ability to try things again, even if it hasn't gone well before? And so, for a lot of my patients, they will say that they sometimes doubt their own trust of themselves, in part because, some of their physical capacities may change, some of what they think they can handle changes, and it disrupts that sense of trust with themselves. And so being able to cultivate trust in a different way ends up being very helpful, because we can, kind of reestablish a covenant with ourselves that we're going to do the best we can with what we have. And then the fifth attitude of mindfulness is non-striving. Now, how can we see a situation for what it is without necessarily trying to change anything? So one way that we often will incorporate this in a mindfulness meditation practice is with the breath. So we often will want to anchor to the breath and see the breath and recognize the patterns of our breath without necessarily trying to change anything. We're not trying to breathe more deeply. We're not trying to, create more space in our abdomen or our spine. We're just trying to notice our breath. And sometimes even just that active observation changes what we do. It changes the behavior. It's called the Hawthorne effect. And so just, being able to recognize that sometimes we can observe something and recognize what's going on without trying to change it. And then the sixth attitude is acceptance. And I've actually done a few topics on acceptance, and I talk about it so much with a lot of the people that come to see me, because acceptance, I think, is a difficult one for people to grapple with, because we so want to be able to change things, make them better, make them different, that the idea of acceptance often becomes synonymous with surrender. And, that's something that I really work through and explore with people, is recognizing that acceptance truly just means seeing things as they are. It doesn't mean that you don't want them to be different. It doesn't mean that you may not still try to create change, but acceptance means we can just see it for what it is right now, regardless if it's good, bad, or questionable. And then the last attitude of mindfulness is letting go. And so oftentimes we may find ourselves holding on to things that no longer serve us, that no longer make sense for us to hold on to. So sometimes that's emotional things like maybe anger or resentment or hurt. And so we end up holding on to that because we just can't imagine letting go, because if we let it go, it absolves someone else, or it makes a situation as if it didn't exist, when in fact holding on to it is what sometimes keeps us stuck. And so with mindfulness, a lot of times when we're dealing with strong emotion that we feel stuck with, that we feel like we're holding on to and it's keeping us stuck, is, we try to catch and release, so we don't try to hold on to the emotion, but we notice the emotion, we honor the emotion, we feel the emotion, we label it for what it is, but then we try to release it and then move on to whatever is next in that stream of consciousness and awareness in the moment. So I would say acceptance and letting go often are the ones that people end up grappling with the most. But I think really being able to hone in on these 7 key attitudes of mindfulness. So again, it's non-judging, patience, beginner's mind, trust, non-striving, acceptance, and letting go. If we set intentions towards cultivating those attitudes in our mindfulness practice, we can really take some of those practices to a deeper level. We can really be able to challenge ourselves on certain areas where we tend to struggle. And we can start to come to a sense of mindfulness in everyday tasks a little bit more easily when we get frustrated over the construction zone of traffic, or when we get, upset or frustrated over other things that are going on in our lives with family or finances or health or whatever it may be. Sometimes we're able to ride the wave a little bit easier, or a little bit more smoothly at least, when we can cultivate some of these attitudes in practice. So I wanted to review just a couple of points on how to, practically deepen your practice when it comes to mindfulness. So one thing is that, just like anything else, like exercise, for instance, consistency is key. And so even if you're just practicing mindfulness for 1 minute or 1 breath, it is a drop in a bucket that accumulates over time. The more we find opportunities to practice, even if they're short, even if they're small, they accumulate and they matter in terms of how we can see a situation. So keep trying to incorporate it, even if on some days it's really hard because you have a lot going on or there's a lot that's distracting you. Even 1 minute or 1 breath can make a difference. And then mix it up. Try different types of practices. I actually went on the Mindful Monday YouTube playlist the other day for the Parkinson's Foundation. There's 60 videos on there, which is incredible. And I don't think that's even all that have been done, but 60 that have been archived. And so there are so many to choose from different speakers, from different, specialties, from different perspectives and different topics. That alone would be a great place to experiment with some different types of meditation. Sometimes our brain needs a little variety in order to stay engaged. And, for many people, they notice resistance with mindfulness, especially sometimes as they try to develop a practice. They may notice resistance in the form of boredom or physical or emotional discomfort or restlessness or distractible mind. And so, oftentimes what I tell people is that just means that your brain is working. It means that it's alive and it's trying to make sense of the world and what's around it. And it's trying to incorporate some of this mindfulness practice, but it's not always easy. And so be curious about the resistance and where it may be coming from. Kind of lean into some of that discomfort and explore it, just asking questions about it and trying to really understand, what it is that you might not be comfortable with or what's difficult for you so that you can work through it. And then, another piece that I always try to make sure people remember is that mindfulness, as we talked about the 7 attitudes of mindfulness, mindfulness is an attitude. It's not just an action. So recognizing that informal practice is vital to deepening your practice overall. And so being able to be mindful with eating, with walking, with having a conversation with a friend or a loved one, we can incorporate a mindful attitude into just about anything that we do. And when life gets interesting, it's really helpful to have some of those skills associated with mindfulness in your back pocket, because it may seem like everything's coming at you at once. And so to be able to step back, anchor, and be mindful with the situation rather than, the fork running away with the spoon, it can really help us in some of those tight spaces where we're feeling compressed and stressed. And then, really creating an intention for mindfulness each day. The things that end up on our radar each day are the ones that we put on our radar. And so, if we wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to create an intention for beginner's mind today. I'm going to create an intention for acceptance. It's going to then plug your brain into an awareness of that idea, of that attitude, and you're more likely to notice it. It's kind of like, if you're shopping for a car and then all of a sudden you see that car that you want and it seems like every other person is driving it, it's because it's now plugged into your awareness. And so if we create an intention for at least a facet of one's mindful attitude each day, it creates an awareness that helps us to then foster and cultivate it. And so I wanted to spend a few minutes just doing a deepening awareness meditation. And so, as we create a deepened practice for mindfulness, it's a matter of being able to, practice it informally as well as formally. And so let's consider this a brief, formal meditation for how to deepen your awareness and your mindfulness practice. So as usual, let's get you as comfortable as you can in your chair or whatever place you find yourself seated or lying down in. And just briefly scan your body and notice where it is. Notice, the contact that your feet may be making on the floor or against your lazy boy recliner, or wherever you find yourself today. Notice where your arms are on the chair or against your body. Noticing the position of your hip and your sit bones. Just noticing those points of contact between you and whatever is underneath you as a way to anchor and ground yourself right here, right now. And as you allow yourself to gently breathe, briefly noticing if there are any points of tension in your body where you may be holding on. Allowing these areas to possibly let go or loosen with the breath, or just at least becoming more aware of their existence. And slowly shifting awareness to the breath itself. Noticing as you breathe in and breathe out. Noticing the path traveled by the air as it goes in your nose or mouth, down your throat, into your lungs. And as it returns to the outside world. And observing that cycle of you feeding yourself that energy, that nutrition that our body needs. Something we do many, many times over through the day without thinking twice about it. And noticing if there's any particular activity in your mind. Any random thoughts that may be running through. Just being mindfully aware of their existence. Not trying to expel the thoughts of your to-do list or what groceries you need or what you're doing right after this practice. Just gently appreciating that your mind is always trying to work for you, whether you recognize it or not. So just recognizing those thoughts with gentle compassion. Simply notice and allow it to continue on your stream of consciousness until the next thought comes along. And when you're able to anchor yourself back in the breath, allowing yourself to do so as a point of stability, as an anchor. And for some, if they find it hard to focus on the breath, focusing on one of those grounding points of contact that your body has with whatever's under you. Your feet on the floor, your hips in your seat. Grounding yourself back to a sensory experience that's happening here and now. And as the thoughts come, again, just noticing, acknowledging, and allowing them to float by. Recognizing that the existence of these thoughts, sometimes feelings of restlessness or frustration, or even just complacency, are all completely normal and are okay to have. But being able to catch and release, recognizing, acknowledging, accepting, and then redirecting back to the breath. Depending on the day, sometimes we can engage in this process for a good 20, 30 minutes. And other days it may be such that a minute is about all you can handle, and that is okay too. But being able to engage in this awareness process with awareness, intentional awareness with non-judgment, non-striving, beginner's mind. Helps you to sometimes see the practice a little bit differently. And each practice will be a little bit different. Allowing yourself to meet you where you are, mind and body. Allowing this awareness to then inform the remainder of your day. Allowing you to cultivate mindfulness in whatever you do. Allowing that to help you as you continue the journey of life and where it may ever take you. It always changes. And when you're ready, start awakening that body a little bit more. Moving your fingers and toes, shifting your weight in your seat, shrugging the shoulders a little bit, feeling your muscles in a more intentional way. And with a deep breath, opening your eyes when it feels right to do so. Seeing some eyes opening. Seeing some eyes still closed, and I don't know, it's about that time. Maybe it's nap time. I wouldn't blame you if it were. And so we certainly invite folks to add to the chat if they have comments or questions, thoughts from today's practice, whatever's on your mind. Sometimes getting back to active awareness is hard. It's like, oh, gotta switch gears here.
Dr. Rush, I did get a direct message, I believe was meant for you. Very calming and relaxing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And thanks for your guidance. For anyone who is interested, just know that these sessions are recorded and they live on the Parkinson's Foundation's YouTube channel or our website, parkinson.org. What was the fifth key attitude, Dr. Rush?
Non-striving, I believe. Yeah. So non-judgment, patience, trust, or patience, beginner's mind, trust, non-striving, acceptance, and letting go.
Naturally letting go is the last one.
Yes, of course. And I wonder if maybe we could put something together and send it to the group just so that they have it. But we can also, I mean, the 7 attitudes of mindfulness are certainly readily available on the internet for anyone who would like to explore that further. There's a lot of a lot of pieces written on that and what they mean and how to apply them. And so it's at least, I think, a good place to start is understanding that they exist and ways that we can lean into those attitudes.
Thank you, everyone. And Dr. Rush, thank you so much. So glad that you're back with us on this mindfulness journey.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be back. And I think I will see you guys next month.
Yes. All right, everyone. Stay mindful. Think about those 7 key attitudes, and we'll see you not next week, but the following, September 12th. All right. Goodbye, y'all.